I am Jeanette Williams Arnold Riggins, and I was born in Atlanta, Georgia.
Jerry T. Williams, born in Elyria. Elyria, Ohio.
Remember she told you complete?
That was complete.
I grew up on Wood Street.
I grew up on 28th Street in Lorraine. We lived in a two-story. We lived upstairs, and there were people living downstairs of us. Then we moved to Woodford Avenue in Elyria, and we stayed on Woodford Avenue until we lived in the basement of my house that my dad was building on Bell Avenue.
I didn't grow up in the same household. I grew up with my grandmother, my father's mother, Molly B. Wheeler. I was born in Georgia. We're up here because of our great uncle, Arnold Jordan, and his sister and brother were still down there. So every summer that you lived in the north, you went south to visit the South family because you was considered rich because you lived in the north. So you packed up everybody in the car, food, everything, because you didn't stop. My Uncle Arnold didn't stop anything but gas. If you had to use the bathroom, oh well. If you got hungry, oh well. When he stopped for gas, you could get something to eat because the fried chicken and everything was in the back of the car. You got out. He stopped at a rest stop. You got out. You ate. You used the bathroom. You got back in the car, and you got back on the road. It was stay together. And once you passed, I'd say a certain line, and I don't know what the line was, but there was a certain line. Once you passed that certain line, you had to go around back to use the bathroom at the gas stations. That was the days when you did what you were told.
We did not travel to the South as much as she did because there were so many of us. Okay. And because of my dad's work, he had to work so hard. I only remember traveling to the South twice. And now once I became grown, I traveled to the South a few more times because I would take Uncle Arnold down to see his brother and sister down there. But as for being young down there, the only major time I remember traveling south was on our way south, unfortunately, to my grandmother's funeral in Florida. And we did stop in Georgia, and that's when I met my grandfather, my dad's father, for the very first time. And that's the only time I ever met him. He did look like my dad. He had one leg. The story behind it, he told us it was war. My dad told me it wasn't war.
It was war with the neighbors?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, so that's the only time. Like I said, there were so many of us that they had to work so much to maintain that. When you look back on it, under the times and stuff that was going on, it was fantastic what they did. Okay, but then again, every family up here had tons of kids.
Goodness, everything is straight out the garden, and from the garden to the stove to the refrigerator. And it's endless. I don't care how much you ate, you never ran out. And the hospitality, I mean, we were taught to stay in a certain area. Like I said, looking back, I understand why. And you didn't go out after dark. If you were a child, you didn't go out after dark. But the food was endless, the hospitalities. My dad's Aunt Teen, she was single. She never got married. She knew we were coming. I mean, she must have started cooking 3 days ahead of time. And you didn't say, if you said, oh, I'm not hungry, you got the look like they said, you better get over there and eat, and she done cooked all this food. When they start talking and don't move their mouth, you know you're in real trouble. And so you go eat, and you eat. But the hospitality, the openness, everybody was so glad to see you. It was just, everybody was so glad to see you. In the summertime, after school is out, we go down there and we'd be down there a week. You leave on a Friday, you're there by Saturday. I guess they rested. I don't know when they rested. But you ate and you visited all the family members, and because you always took something. You were taking stuff they didn't have, like if they didn't have pots and pans. Whoever didn't have anything, that's what you took down there.
Okay.
So that, and that's why I say you took what they needed, that you had, So you're down there taking stuff, you're eating, you're enjoying, and everybody, whatever neighborhood you were in, they knew you were from the north, and you just was treated like royalty.
Like I said, the only time I went down there was they were living in a house and everything like what we had up here.
We stayed with my uncle, who had a 3-bedroom house, and you doubled up. The bed, the double bed, the mattress went on the floor. All the kids slept on the floor, and the grown-ups slept in the bed. And you just made it work.
So your father, you have a picture of your father. So introduce your father to us, please.
His name is Alonzo Lee Williams.
Alonzo Lee Williams.
Yes.
Born in Georgia.
Born in Georgia.
What year?
October 1927. October 9th, 1927. Yeah.
His dealings with Georgia. When did he come up to good old Elyria?
He came up to Elyria because she was born in Georgia. And my first, Juanita, was born in 46. So she was born in 45. So during the transition up here, bringing my mom was here, my mom was already pregnant with Juanita. Okay? And that was in 1946. Now, he was here prior to that, doing a lot of the groundwork.
So he was coming back and forth.
He's coming back and forth.
Getting established.
Building stuff and getting established and everything before he decided to come up this way.
So how many were born in Georgia out of the siblings?
Just the one.
You're the lucky one. You're the Georgia peach.
I'm a Georgia peach.
Whatever.
Look, Buckeye, don't knock it.
There you go. There's the war. So your father, obviously he's into concrete. Has he?
Brick mason.
Brick mason.
I spent so much time working with my dad. When I started working with my dad, I was about 7.
There was a reason to keep him working.
They kept me busy and all that, okay? And so by the time I got done working with my dad, all I wanted to do was run around the neighborhood with Gene and Al Robinson. We played football all the time. We played baseball. And that's how I got in trouble playing football. We went up to Edison School. We were playing football at Edison School. There's probably about maybe 13 or 14 of us. And we wanted to take a break. So while we was on that break, we wanted to break some windows at the school. The windows we wanted to break were glass block windows. Rocks don't break glass block windows. And I knew this because I worked with my dad on glass blocks. So I went and I got a brick. When the window broke, we all went back to playing football. Well, apparently somebody saw us break that window, and the police came. And we're back there playing football, and the police come, and he said, "Let me see your ball." We threw it to him. So when we threw it back to him again, he said, "Well, we're not going to give your ball back till you tell us who broke that window." Almost in unison, "Jerry did it!" They threw me under the bus, just like that. Now, you got to remember, back in the day, there were no cell phones. All they had was landlines and all that. So he took me in the police car. Now I'm trying to be cool and ask questions. "Oh, what's that for?" After that one, knowing I am in trouble. He takes me to the house, and all the mothers of the neighborhoods are on the front porch. I get out of the police car, and all the mothers of the neighborhood see me get out of that police car.
Man.
My mom was not happy. She says, "Go to your room and wait till your dad get home." I would rather she whip me. I would rather she whip me because then I can fake like I was crying and then go back outside. So when Daddy got home, it took him forever to get home. That's the first thing. It took him forever to get home. To me, it was forever. And then when my dad pulled in the driveway, it got quiet. He came home, and what he did to me would be child abuse now.
Oh, he tore you up.
That's the only time I got a whipping from him. That was it.
The other thing is to have the police come to your house was a big deal.
White man.
Our dad expected certain things of us.
Yeah.
And he will tell you he's working hard so that we can have what he didn't have.
That is working his head off.
Went to New York.
In the late 50s, the first couple of years in the 60s, work died here for a while because that's when the shipyard shut down
Out in Lorraine.
in Lorraine. So that's
So-
the beginning of factories shutting down
Right.
and changing and all that.
Domino
so
effect.
construction itself was not there because people weren't buying houses. So he had to go to New York to work. And he would go all summer long to work. He'd come home on the weekend maybe once a month to help pay the bills and all that. But he spent a lot of time in 59 and 60, maybe 61,
About 3
working
years.
in New York. Yeah. He was a disciplinarian, okay? But he also was very good to us.
My father's mother. I do want to say that you don't have a lot of pictures because it wasn't in the budget back then. Pictures were a luxury. I think we've got that Olin Mills picture of me and Juanita and Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
That was a luxury. You know, they had a photographer. He came in with this setup, and when he pushed the button, it dust or whatever flew. Whatever. But you had to be exactly still, because Dad said you have to be still, don't move, because I'm paying him, and you only got 2 chances.
Yeah, to get it right.
Uh-huh.
To get it right. So what did your grandmother do for a living while she was here?
She was a domestic worker. I was
Okay.
trying to think what they called her. She did domestic. And then when her husband, Mandy Wheeler, came up, he worked in factory. Because that's what they were doing. They were coming up. He worked in GM.
General Motors.
Yeah. And
Fisher
they,
Guy plant over there off of Lowell Street.
yes. I worked there too.
Did you?
Yes.
What years?
Oh, gosh. The early 80s.
Which church did you all attend to?
That was on Fuller Road and was that Wayne Street, Jerry? Where am I at? Where Mr.
Nelson Street?
Where Mr. Nelson's store was.
Where Mr. Nelson grocery store
Yeah,
was?
it was right behind
that
his
was,
grocery store.
That was Fuller Road and Wayne.
Fuller Road and Wayne Street.
Yeah. We went to Antioch Baptist Church. My dad built the church on Bell Avenue. That was called Antioch Baptist Church. And that was Reverend C.L. Brown was the pastor. That's when we first started going to church. And then when I got out of service, I ended up going to Unity over on Fuller Road, which is another building that my dad built.
Growing up with grandmother Molly, how do you think she handled the neighborhood? I mean, did you see her being just friendly with everybody? Would everybody come to you all's house?
Oh, yeah, she was the place to be. At first, they were the place to be because they had the after-hour place. And she had the best food, so they always had a good crowd. There was no fights or anything. You go to Molly and Mandy's, you're going to behave yourself, you're going to play your cards, gamble,
And
whatever
this is
you
at the house?
drink. At the house.
This is at the house.
Oh, yeah, after our joint. I mean, after our house. Gosh.
Wow.
I be trying to get it right. So then she started going to church. One of her friends one of the neighbors invited her to church. And she went to church and she got what Church of God in Christ called saved and sanctified. Now it's considered Pentecostal. So when she got saved and sanctified and came home after that revival, and she told Mandy, oh, I left his picture over there, told Mandy, we can't do that anymore. He said, what? This was a moneymaker. I mean, they made very good money. And he said, what do you mean we can't do that anymore? She said, I'm saved now. This is going to be God's house. He cussed. He ranted. I mean, I didn't know why he was cussing. I mean, I'm in my bedroom, keep my mouth shut. And he cussed and ranted. He said, he'll kill that so-and-so preacher. He ain't going to have this stuff. Messing with his money. Because they made very good money, apparently. You know. So a couple of months into that, she had the preacher over for dinner. Sunday dinner.
The birth of the Bullpen.
Tell them what that is
Unity
now.
Church,
Yeah.
the Bullpen that started it.
But that wasn't the only house doing the after-hour thing. And so gradually, as the wives became Christian, I was trying to find another way to put it. There isn't another way to put it. It shut them down, so They needed an outlet, and they found one. You know, there was a need and it got filled. I don't know how else to
And,
put it.
and the unity was called the Bullpen.
It was called the Rose Room, then the Bullpen. Yeah, my dad built that. He was commissioned to build that by basically all the men in the neighborhood.
That's right.
They paid him to build that building because they needed a place to go. That was built because the men in the neighborhood, in the city, the women were working and they were sanctified. They weren't allowing alcohol in their houses anymore.
No, it was God's house.
So they
then.
had to go somewhere, and that's how unity came. Well, that's how the building became a building, because it ended up being an after-hour joint, overnight, and everything else. Dance hall and the whole kit and
Oh
caboodle.
yeah.
He built that one, yeah. Yeah.
It was a nightclub. It was a whole, I mean, famous people came through there. They liked to dress up and they liked to party. They did events, you know?
Yeah, Mom and Dad had a lot of club meetings in our basement.
Yeah.
And when they had them club meetings, don't come down there.
Grown folks' business.
Grown folk business, right? They hired my dad to build that building over down Bell Avenue, and that's where we ended up going to church. It became Unity.
The Baptist Church.
Yeah.
Growing up in Elyria as a child, living on Wood Street, what was the neighborhood like?
We were our own entity. In other words, everybody on the neighborhood had been moved up by another family member and lived in that area, from Fuller Road to Wood Street. And you were just, the store was there, the gas station was there. It was black owned. We weren't black, we were Negro, sorry. But you gotta go from, bear with me, I gotta go from Negro to black to African American. What'd I miss? Miss one.
Colored.
Colored. That's what we started out as, colored. See, I
started
told you I
off-
missed one.
You started off as N.
No, we started off as colored. We didn't hear or say that word. Not where I was.
I heard it.
I
You
didn't.
heard,
On Wood Street, across the street was the farm. There was a farmer, Farmer Brown. I'm saying Brown. I don't remember what his name was.
Okay,
but the cows and everything that was across the street. So, and I mean, you know, sometimes we slipped over there to pick blackberries or something.
My dad used to say, you don't know what you don't know. And I kept saying, what in the world does that mean? But when you look back on it now, we were still racially divided. Okay? From the railroad tracks on Bell Avenue to Route 57. Okay? All blacks. Okay? You cross the railroad tracks heading toward the west up to Lake Avenue, all whites. All right? We had to walk through the white neighborhood to get to our elementary school, Edison, up on Lake Avenue. But then it really didn't bother us because we didn't know
So
what we
it's
didn't
natural.
know.
It was how we lived.
Right. It was how we lived, right. Now, one white family moved on Bell Avenue down by 57. His name was Georgie Woodcox and his family. Okay, well, to us, he was just Georgie. Okay, so we really didn't see a racial divide until we got older. The Woodford area, the Irondale area, that whole area was another black neighborhood.
Everything was just accepted as this is how it is. And because we had always lived like that, we didn't know.
kind of just went with it.
We just went with it. It was, this is how it is. This is where we live. This is what we do.
You know what makes people, it's difficult for people to remember what it was like on the west side in the 50s and 60s. Because we look at West River Parkway and we look at 57 and all them, okay? Well, they were not there, okay? If you go down 57, at the end of 57 was Lodi Street, which is called Lake Avenue today. It was called Lodi. Well, right across the street at the end of 57 was a drugstore called Copland's. And that's where we used to have to go get our medicine. Mom would send us down to Copland's and get our medicine and come back up there, okay? And then West River was not the curvature like you see now, okay? It was just straight. The amazing thing to me is them going south, there were no freeways. It was 2 lanes. They had to go down 2-lane roads all the way south. That's like going down West River all the way to Georgia. Yeah, see what I'm saying? Can you imagine that? Okay. So yeah, we just, I can picture of what I was growing up with the roadways. I can take it right now. I got to walk right down 57. I can tell you exactly where Copler's Furniture was. I can tell you exactly where there was a tall grocery store right at the corner of West River and Lodi Street. Okay? I can tell you exactly where them places were. Okay? Bob's Sparker Market. Okay? Yeah. It used to be a tiny grocery store closer to Shear Street. Then they built that supermarket, the big one. But it was just a straight up grocery store back then.
Everybody knew each other.
It was just a nice neighborhood. It really was. We protected each other, okay? And Miss Harvey, she would feed us peanut butter and jelly sandwiches all the time. There was a guy across the street named Mr. Watson. His bread wasn't all the way done at the elevator, okay? But he would feed us all the time.
And you still eat it.
Oh yeah.
Even though he wasn't all the way up there.
All day. But he was just that friendly, So we had a very good neighborhood itself.
Okay, my grandmother said that God made everybody. So you weren't allowed to think that because they were light-skinned or because they were white or because they were another nationality. All she said was God made everybody. So you just say, oh, well, God made everybody. And God made it. She says, you see all the flowers, how the different colors they are? Well, God made everybody. So everybody's all different. That doesn't mean one's bad and one's good. It just means they're different. So that's what she taught. So that's my foundation. So when I grew up and began to find out about prejudice, I was very naive. I was not aware because the world I lived in, everybody was a person. Everybody was, somebody. You liked some, you didn't like some. Some was bad and some was good. I don't know how else to explain it. When we look back, we didn't know, I was telling Jerry, we didn't know we were poor until we moved out of the neighborhood and somebody told us, you were poor. We were. Because we had food, we had clothes, we had fun. We enjoyed each other. So we didn't know we were poor really until they told us.
Like I said, you don't know what you don't know. So we would walk to Edison School, we get into class, and I didn't realize this until 5th grade. Prior to the 5th grade, from kindergarten up to the 4th grade, the blacks always sat in the back.
Yeah.
Okay. So the dynamic on how you all were raised. How many siblings stayed with you?
Just her.
Just you.
Just me.
Then the rest of your siblings were with your parents?
Yes.
Okay. So, go ahead.
I was raised like an only child, basically.
Right.
Because she didn't know us and we didn't know her.
Then as we got into school time and I went to spend the summer there, you have to understand, you didn't ask questions of grown-ups. They said, Dad said, you're going to visit, you're going to stay with your mom for a week on the summertime with your brothers and sisters. And you're like, I got brothers and sisters. But you don't say, I got brothers. You just think it. You don't ask any questions. So you go and spend a week with your brothers and sisters. And your mom, it's your mom because your mom comes in the beginning of the school year and takes you school shopping. I got to go by myself. And
we didn't.
But anyway, I'm gonna hush. Go ahead.
But she's right because when we would go to Grandma's house.
How often was that?
Every summer we would go to Grandma's house.
And this is right across the town.
Yeah.
You guys, and it sounds like when y'all would go over there, like, oh, we'll see her next summer. Like you guys were you guys were still in Georgia. You guys were a lot closer than you think.
Didn't even know.
No, because you stayed in your area and you stayed in your area.
Wow.
That was your own little town. That was your
we
own
would
little...
see her, but didn't know who she was.
Right.
Okay, we would stay there for almost 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because we helped plant the garden and harvest the garden and all that. Yeah. But we were not told.
You didn't help harvest.
We were not told.
You left before it harvested.
We were not told that was my sister.
Until when?
Wow.
I probably about 13, 14.
Wow.
Yeah. Because, like, again, we're grown folk business. You hear that all the time. Grown folk business.
But you knew that they were your siblings when they would come over, or you learned later on in
Right.
life?
You just
Wow.
accept what's told. You know, your brothers and sisters are coming and they're going to be here 3 weeks. You didn't help harvest. Y'all helped plant. But y'all didn't help harvest.
No, we didn't.
Y'all didn't come back for harvest.
We did all the hard work of planting and everything. They reaped
Oh,
the benefits.
yeah, right.
They got this.
He's got to do that martyr thing.
Harvest is hard, I heard.
Planting is hard.
I helped plant too, but the boys had to dig up and plant
My
the
hand.
seeds. Like he did it by himself.
JD, I, Mandy, Grandma would help too. I don't remember her being out there in the field at all. But that's what you had to do. You had to do what you had to do. Okay?
You weren't there when it was harvested, and we had to spend 3 or 4 days canning the beans and canning the corn.
No, didn't
and
do none of that.
So with you, so you being the only child in the house too. So when you said who else would help harvest? I'm looking at her.
everybody grew their own food, and you canned it. You know, I don't know if y'all know what canning is. They can Google it. But after a while, we graduated to freezing it. But you still had to cut all the corn off the cob, and you had to blanch those beans, and
Is
it
that
had to
shucking
go.
corn?
Oh,
That's what it's called, shucking the corn.
The shucking is taking the outside off.
Oh, restaurant gives generation.
The best part about going over to Grandma's house was she always had plenty of food.
Oh yeah.
And she always had watermelon.
She grew one.
She grew them. They were so good. Oh, man. And then the well water in the front. That well water was always so cold, and it was so good. Yeah.
You didn't know how to prime the pump when we'd had a drought.
Not my problem. I wasn't home then.
You had to have a certain amount of water that you pour in there, and you got to pump it really, really hard to get that water to go down and catch the other water and bring it up.
I love the real water. I love the taste of it.
I'm going back to the dynamic that you guys lived like you guys lived in Ohio and Georgia, but still lived in Elyria.
Right.
And when you were, so how did you feel when you would see your siblings come over? I'm sure the news would come like your brothers and sisters are coming over. How did you feel when they would come over?
It was work because all the girls are going to be in my bedroom. They had to be in the spare bedroom. They take the mattress off the bed and lay it on the floor. They didn't make up no beds. They was on vacation. I guess they thought they was on vacation.
Oh, we ate quite well. We ate quite well, yes, because Grandma could cook.
Everything
We
fresh
ate
out
well,
the garden or fresh out the pantry where it was, canned and yeah. And those watermelons, Jerry.
That's what, see, we ate healthy. But that's just part of growing up, because they try to make it the best as possible to keep us straight, okay? And we really enjoyed our time as kids.
Yeah.